Hi, I'm Derek Gage with the Gage Law Firm in Atlanta. This is part one in a series where I try to answer some common questions I get from families who come to me to represent their loved ones or with whom I interact at educational seminars or speaking engagements. And today I want to focus on some very general themes that might help you in supporting and breaking through to your loved one facing mental health challenges. To start, if you are beating yourself up, join the club. The only reason I have any experience in talking about this issue is from making a whole ton of mistakes over the course of many, many years, almost 40 years of being around mental health challenges in my family, having my own experience with those mental health challenges, and then representing hundreds of clients over the course of my 15 years of practicing law. Only by making those mistakes, and some bad ones, have I learned better ways of reaching somebody who is acutely symptomatic, somebody who is facing mental health challenges, and maybe who doesn't have the desire to enter into any sort of treatment structure at all. The four themes that I'm going to mention today are very general, and I intend to get more specific in some of those themes as this series moves along. But the four themes that I want to talk about today are education, patience, perspective, and also empathy. And if you start with those four general themes, then you're much more likely to make progress faster, not quickly, but faster than if you otherwise had not kept those themes in mind, something that I've learned over the years. Keep in mind, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, and most likely neither are you. But we are in that critical position of supporting somebody who hasn't yet engaged somebody or hasn't gotten into a treatment structure that they can buy into, treatment professionals who they trust, and it's our job as a support system to encourage them to seek that out in a way that's not threatening and in a way that actually motivates them to take on their challenges. Education is most important above all else. If you don't educate yourself on these conditions, on the medications to treat these conditions, on the understanding of what causes them, what's on the horizon in terms of research, what the DSM-5, the most recent diagnostic manual for mental health conditions, says about these diagnoses. If you don't educate yourself, then you're going to be behind the eight ball to start with. And educating starts with the National Alliance on Mental Illness. If you aren't a member of your local NAMI chapter, go join today. Or just even go to a meeting, go to a family session. Any interaction you can have with your local NAMI chapter is huge. Why? Because anybody involved in those local chapters is in your position or has been in your position. They've had loved ones who have faced mental health challenges. They've gone through the frustrations, the anguish, the anxiety, potentially of their loved ones being homeless or in jail. And it's an incredible group of people to gain knowledge, understanding, even people to vent to when you feel like you can't take it anymore. And many of them have been in the same situations that you have been in. So join NAMI, not just on the national level, but in your local chapters. In the larger cities, there are multiple chapters. Here in Atlanta alone, I think we have probably 5 or 6. And in the smaller and mid-sized cities, you're going to have at least one chapter near you that you can join. So join NAMI, educate yourself, and you're going to be in a far better position to get where you want to with your loved one. Secondly is patience. This is not ever anything that happens quickly. As I said, I've been around mental health challenges since I was a little kid, having it in my family. And I feel like even now I'm just coming to the point where I am really fulfilling my role as a support well. And if you go into this recognizing that none of this happens quickly, but that you can make incremental change over time and to celebrate that change as it comes, then you're going to be in a far better position to help them. You're not going to feel that you need to rush into anything. You're not going to make them feel like you're trying to take control of their lives, because you are patient and because you know that it takes time for somebody to really come to grips with these types of challenges. Consider too that most statistics say that from the first break, whether it be a psychotic break, a depressive break, a manic break, to a point of actual stable management of these conditions is on average a course of a decade, 10 years. And I think that that's something that can actually be sped up if we keep in mind these themes going into our conversations with our loved ones. So keep patience, and you will lay a better road to making progress. Keep in mind the perspective of the person you are trying to convince to engage in professional treatment structure. If you are trying to engage them in your logic, then you're not likely to get very far. It's their perspective in the end that matters, because it is them we are trying to persuade into these mental health structures, these mental health professionals. Stay away from stigmatized terms. Even those terms that we use on a regular basis, things like illness, the word sick, disease, even staying away from conversations about medications in the beginning can be helpful, because it allows you to start building a conversation. Those stigmatized terms can threaten the person that you're trying to convince to get into a treatment structure. And in the end, that's what matters. If they feel threatened, if they feel that you're trying to control them in any way, then you're going to get walls thrown up pretty quickly. And you're trying to keep the conversation going and to put them in a position where they actually trust you and they don't feel threatened by you. And in the end, it's their logic, it's their perspective that matters when it comes to making those inroads, to finding a breakthrough with them and encouraging them to get into that structure. And finally, the last theme is empathy. I don't mean sympathy per se, to the extent that you are expressing to them that you feel sorry for them. In fact, I think that almost can be counterproductive. Nobody really wants to feel that somebody's feeling sorry for them. And by empathy, I simply mean understanding what it's like to face these challenges. And again, that all goes back to education. If you are understanding the diagnoses themselves, but beyond the diagnoses, just what it's like to have those symptoms. It's hard to really understand that just by reading the DSM-5. Engaging with people who have actually experienced these symptoms and gotten on top of these challenges is huge. And a lot of times you can find those people in NAMI meetings. Even just reading up on anecdotal stories or reading on college studies, college research, coming to understand these conditions is going to give you a big advantage in the conversation, because you're not going to sound unintentionally condescending. Nobody wants to go into these conversations sounding better than the person they're speaking to. But when we don't go in trying to understand where they are coming from and what it feels like, then that's how we come off. And again, you're going to have walls thrown up in your face. And the other side of empathy is understanding what it's like to take psychotropic medications. And one of the things that I have learned over the years is I stay away from the conversation of medications early on, because again, that's usually a non-starter. Many of the psychotropic medications, antipsychotics, in particular mood stabilizers, and talking with clients over the years, can be difficult to deal with. They don't necessarily feel good. And in many ways, you're conceding something as far as how your mind works in order to just operate on the same level as the rest of us and find some success and happiness in your life. And by understanding that these medications aren't just like taking a Flintstones vitamin or an aspirin or something that immediately makes you feel better, that there are those concessions, then over time, as you start to delve into those conversations, and as they start to delve into those conversations with medical professionals, psychiatrists, and therapists, then they're far more likely to consider them as an option in helping their symptoms and giving them the traction to really come to understand their own minds better. In the end, that's very important for them, educating themselves about their own minds. If you keep those four themes in mind, education above all else, because that lays the groundwork for the other three things, patience, keeping in mind that you want to approach things from their perspective as best you can, and then finding some empathy for them, which comes from education, so that they don't feel that you're talking down to them, you're going to make inroads a lot faster. Next time, we'll talk more about bringing the topic of medications into the conversation and how you might want to do it. And we'll go into more specifics about the themes that I brought up today. But in the meantime, stay patient, don't lose hope, and recognize that these folks are intelligent people and they likely have more potential than many others to accomplish great things. Until then, bye-bye.